so happy you're on.
Hey guys, Jasmine here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, a special hello Yagwe and hola to you. So, I'm like super nervous right now, my heart's beating. This is a video that I've wanted to make and have tried to make multiple times, and it just never felt right each time. So, I don't know, hopefully this one will be the one where I'm able to articulate this the way I feel like God wants me to, because it's not just about me and sharing my story, but it's for whatever God's purpose for it, for anyone who is watching to get out of it, and that's what's important to me. So yeah, I didn't write it down, I didn't make like any kind of structure of what the timeline of how my journey has gone, but because I just wanted it to be coming from my heart and to say in the moment. So I guess, like, yeah, let's just get right into it. So, as I'm sure I've put it on my channel, said it somewhere. Yes, I am a Christian, and I got saved when I was 7. And I know it's like that terminology can get a bit mixed in with like the religion of it and all this stuff. And so first and foremost, I do want to say I'm a Christian, and I got saved in a non-denominational church. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I currently attend a Pentecostal church. So I wouldn't say that religion is the thing. It definitely isn't the thing that is the reason I do what I do or believe what I believe. But it's because of Jesus Christ and the fact that I believe that He died on the cross for my sins, and that without Him I'm lost. Completely, utterly lost. So I guess that's what I wanted to say for that first. Because I know there's so many kinds of Christians or people that profess to be Christians, and there's all types of different ways that we all act because we're all human, and nobody's perfect. And just because we all come under this one umbrella of this umbrella term, there's just a lot of misconceptions or just different perceptions. So I just wanted to say the kind, I guess, that I feel like I am. So yeah, the church that I got saved in was Calvary Chapel, Old Bridge, in Old Bridge, New Jersey. So the night that I got saved was actually a Saturday night. I'll never forget. So I was going to the one for my age group. I really don't remember what 7-year-olds did, but I was in my age group room, and our teacher, our Saturday night school teacher, was talking about hell, because this one boy blurted to this other boy, "Go to hell," in the thing, and he wanted to like kind of explain more in depth what that means, and like how even if our parents are Christians, since obviously we're kids, our parents attend church, so even if our parents are Christians and like profess to believe in Jesus and everything, that doesn't automatically mean that we go with them to heaven, as you know, just because we're their kids. And so that if we don't personally believe, then we would go to hell. And I was like, well, obviously I don't want to go to hell. What? I want to go to heaven with Jesus and mommy and daddy too. So I went back home to my room that night, and I prayed and asked Jesus to come into my heart. So I do believe that I definitely knew what I was doing. I understood it at the time. So even though I was young, I do believe that I knew what I was doing and what I was saying. So I would say that is when I accepted Jesus into my heart. And then I've always been the obedient, not really fussy child, really quiet and reserved most of my life. And I don't know, I guess because of that, I always felt like even when I got urges as I got older, you know, we all go through puberty, we all have hormones, different feelings and stuff around that time. I'd never felt like doing those things because I'm like, oh, okay, so I've been good all my life. I've done this to this point. I can't ruin it now. And so I always had this in high school and all this, like from middle school to high school to college and everything, just this like inner battle that I didn't realize was tearing me apart on the inside. Trying so hard to follow all the rules and not really going to what was the important part of this relationship that I signed up for when I was 7. So yeah, I basically was that kid in high school that always did what I was told. I went to school, went home, did my homework. My best friend was a pastor's daughter and a deacon's daughter. I was that friend that all my other friends or classmates, not even my friends, would try to use me as an excuse so that their parents would let them go places. Like, I was that kid. And I don't know, none of the things that my other friends did really drew me. And honestly, I was such a judgmental kid. I was so judgmental because I never really did anything, and like I'd always force myself so much not to do things that I was like, oh, they're just weak, like they don't have to do those things, but they choose to do it. And I like definitely felt like I was superior to them because I was able to control myself and all this stuff. So I definitely did have that in high school and just growing up in general. And you know, a lot of us kids that grow up in church have that mindset, which is really bad. And it's another reason why church does have a bad rep, because of this kind of seed of superiority that's planted into our minds because we choose to try to be better, that we are better in some way. And so that's kind of the mindset that I grew up with. And then I went to university. I went to Wingate University in North Carolina, and I was 17, so young and innocent, you know, so sheltered. Going into that, I did not know what I was walking into. Like, I was homeschooled up until like 5th grade, and I went to a really small private Baptist school on an island, and my graduating class was 4 people. Like, you can get any more sheltered than I was. And so yeah, it was a small private university and stuff, but still 2,500 students compared to 30, 40, 50 students in my whole high school. I don't know how many, whatever. But yeah, it's a big leap for me. So it was fine at first. The first 3 months were fun. I was able to experience all these things that I never did before. I didn't have my mom or my parents there to kind of tell me when to do stuff or when to go home. Like, it was up to me now, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of pressure. Like, I can do whatever. Do I do whatever? Kind of thing. So, I mean, for the most part, a lot of times I just stayed in my room, like the first 2 months, go to class, go to the little freshman activities that they'd have. I made a great friend, Claire. So shout out to you, Claire. She was one of my friends, and still one of my friends that I cherish, and I think we'll be friends forever. But yeah, she was a Christian as well. But then of course my other friends, some were Christian, some weren't. We were just all in our freshman year. We lived in the same dorm, some on the same hall, or just in the same building. And so yeah. So then around November, well, there was this guy in my class. So I've talked about in my another video that I've had one boyfriend, and so I met him in November of 2012. Properly met him because we were in a class together, but I didn't know him. And so we met through mutual friends, and he asked for my number and all this stuff, blah blah. And so then we just started talking, and I have never talked to a guy before. Like, I was so new to it. Literally, I stuttered when I gave him my number. I just was freaking out because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I always just say no. Like, I've always just said no if a guy tried to talk to me or anything growing up. So, but like, he was cute, and you know, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, it's fine. I don't need to like check. Whatever, it's just fine, whatever. I was still innocent, just new to all this. So I was like, yeah, sure. So we started talking and stuff, and all my other friends were so advanced in different things than I was. So I had never kissed. He was my first kiss. Like, I had never kissed anyone, dated anyone, like done any of that before then. So I was like, what do I do? Like, what if he wants to kiss? Like, what if he wants to do this? Like, what am I gonna do? And since this was all new to me, and I didn't really know, this was new territory, I didn't know what was right or wrong. I didn't feel comfortable. Like, I was scared to ask my mom because I was like, I don't know, like, should I even be talking to him? But I don't want to stop talking to him and all this stuff. So I didn't really talk about it. So I was just going through it on my own in those first few months or whatever. And so our friends, the one that I met him through, he was dating my friend, and she would always sneak and sleep with him in his dorm. And so I would always go with her, because they lived in the boys' dorm, and I would always go with her, and like, we'd go hang out and stuff and then go back together. But then I went one night, and she was like, oh, we're just gonna go upstairs, whatever, and then come back. So I was like waiting for her, and I was like, okay, so it's like 11 o'clock, it's past curfew, I'm gonna have to sneak out of here, but when am I gonna do that? Where's Raven? So I was like just really awkward and nervous. I'm like, I can't stay here. But I did end up staying there because I was like, I'm not walking back by myself, and she didn't come back down. So I stayed, and it was really, really awkward. I didn't sleep that night at all. I was just like freaking out. I was like stiff as a board. I was like, So, but you know, that was the opening door to like, So, after that, I started staying over a bit more, and you know, one thing linked to another, you kind of guess the rest. But the reason why it was like so much easier for me to do all of that was because my grandfather died in December 8th, 2012. So it was about a week before I was gonna have my final exams, and I'd been talking to my ex for maybe 2 weeks, if that, by then. And then, like, I get all of these texts and calls and messages like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, why are you sorry? Like, what's going on? Like, why is all these people? And you know, my mom and everyone was grieving, and they didn't know how to tell me. So like, I was still in the dark at that point, and one of my classmates called me on Skype, and she was crying, and then she's like, I was like, are you okay? Like, what's happening? And she was like, oh no, you don't know. And then she was like, I'm so sorry, like, I shouldn't have called you, all this stuff. And then she didn't even have to say it, but all of a sudden, all of everyone else's like messages and stuff rushed to my head, and I knew what happened, that my grandfather was gone. And so I just broke down on the ground, and like I was a mess. I was inconsolable, and I was in Claire's room. So that's one of the many reasons I feel like we'll be friends forever, is that she was there and in that moment, in one of the darkest, hardest times of my life. And so yeah, that literally tore my heart out of my chest. And like I had to go home. Like thankfully my dad lived about 2 hours away, so he came and picked me up, and I stayed there for a week. And I wasn't gonna do my finals. I was like, I need to go home. I don't want to be here. I need to be home. Like I want to see him and everything like that. So yeah, I was ready. But then it was crazy because I had randomly felt like calling him the day before he passed. And I actually wasn't even trying to call him. I was trying to call my mom, and she was at the hospital with him, and he had answered. And so I was like, oh, hey, Jama, and all this stuff. And he didn't sound like he sounded fine, because he always tried to be strong and stuff for us. And like I just remember we were just talking. He's like, how are you? All this stuff. And then when we were gonna end the call, he was like, Thalang, I want you to remember one thing, that no matter what happens, I want you to finish school and like don't worry about anything else, but that's what I want you to do, no matter what, okay? And I was like, yeah, of course, Jamal, like, oh, of course, yeah, okay. And then he was like, I love you, and I was like, I love you. And then that was our last conversation, and that's what I remembered when I wanted to go home, and I was like, I can't go home, like I have to finish the semester this freshman year, and then I'll go home and I'll see him. I'll go visit his grave in the summer. Okay, I'm back, and yeah, and the sun is going down, so I just had to charge my camera a bit. It was dying because I was talking too much, but I'm only at the beginning, I guess the formulating season for my testimony. But anyways, yeah, so I stayed and I got honors that first semester, and then I stayed the next semester as well, and then I went home in May after my spring semester, and nobody had told me how bad my grandmother had gotten. So she was basically withering from a broken heart, not having my mother with her, and not having me there with her as well. And she went from being this like super sassy, confident, vibrant, bugarar person that, you know, independent, do whatever, does her own thing, to being in and out of the hospital. She used to talk so much, like you could never get her to not talk, and she couldn't talk, and like barely, she couldn't talk. She couldn't eat on her own. She was not in the hospital. So yeah, it was just, she had degenerated so quickly over the months following my Jama's death. And so when I got home, like I barely recognized her. So when I got home, she had just been released from the hospital. They had told her that I was coming home, so she was finally eating and getting her strength up, because she was like, she wanted to be out when I got home. She's like, when's Thalang coming? When's Thalang coming? Is Thalang here yet? And everything like that. So when I got home, it broke my heart to see my boo-boo like that. But, you know, keep a strong face up for her. I was just thankful to be able to see her. So I picked her up from the hospital. We went for a long drive and just spent a really nice day together. And then they were gonna have a party for us that night to celebrate me coming home and my boo getting out of the hospital and one of my cousin's birthdays. And I was still super jet lagged, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna just take a quick nap, and then so I can be up and ready and awake for the party. And then while I was sleeping, I was woken up by my cousin wailing. And so then I woke up, and just like with my Juma, like I knew she was gone. Nobody had to tell me anything. And so I just ran downstairs, and yeah, I was like crying and just in shock and in so much pain, like not again, you know? And so yeah, it was just a really tough few months that time, because in general, if you're Marshallese, you know that your Buba and Juma are like so much more than just your grandparents. And being the eldest grandchild, like I was so close to them, and they were basically like my parents as well. And so it was just really, really hard to lose them. It completely shook me to my core. To this day, I would say it's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life. And like I'd never been tested like that in my life before then. Like everything, I was just so blessed growing up. Yeah, my parents got divorced when I was 11, and you know, moved a lot growing up, you know, gone through the regular, you know, things that people go through growing up, but I'd never gone through something that so intensely broke me like that did. And so my faith that I received or was supposed to be putting into practice in my life from when I was 7 years old was never really tested until that moment. And so since it wasn't really tested, I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't want to turn to God. I was angry. I was like, how dare you take them from me? I still needed them. Our family still needed them. They didn't even get to see me doing well in school, going into university. Everything I had done in my life to that point was, you know, for them. And I was just so angry and hurt and disappointed. And I'd been disappointed a lot in my life, but that was like the epitome of disappointment for me. So yeah, I was just like, do whatever I want. Like, you don't love me. I don't care. I'm just whatever. I'm gonna do what I think is right. I won't do what I think is wrong. But if I don't think it's wrong, I'm gonna do it. So that's basically how I went through pretty much my whole college years in my undergrad. And there was always the nagging feeling like, you know, this isn't right. Like, what are you doing? Just turn back. And then the longer it went, the more I was like, it's so late, or I don't know how to go back, or like, because I had been so judgmental as well growing up, I don't know if I'll be welcome back. Like, I've done so much already that, like, who's gonna want me? Who's gonna want me to come back? Who's gonna care if I come back or not? All that kind of stuff. So, I graduated. I went through other stuff, other heartbreaks, little heartbreaks here and there, disappointments, things like that. But then I went home and I was back in community again. That's the thing, in my undergrad as well, I didn't try to surround myself with people that would call me out and be like, you need to go to church, you need to do this. Like, people that cared in that sense to do that and to, you know, all that stuff. And my ex wasn't saved, he wasn't a Christian, and we could never have worked because I had all of these expectations for him to do that he couldn't do because he didn't understand why he had to. And it was unfair of me to put that on him. And then also there was things that because of me being a Christian I couldn't do for him, or I couldn't be for him and or understand him because of the differences. There's just a big difference with that. There was a big hole in the relationship because of that, so it could have never worked. It worked for like a time, but we had to maintain it, and like it was so much work to maintain it, like more work than it should have been because of that. So then yeah, I went home. I was starting to get back on track, going to church and stuff like that, but it still wasn't the same. It was still like, oh, as long as I have these people to tell me what to do and not to do, then I'll be fine. Like, I can do what I'm supposed to do and I'll be accepted again. And then I came to Australia, and I didn't have those people around me here. I just went buck wild, especially because, so I guess I was kind of contained because I was in a relationship in my undergrad, and then I came to Australia and I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a completely new country. Nobody knew me. Nobody knew the old me, who I was and stuff. So I went crazy. I was about 4 years late to the whole, you know, the sheltered kids go crazy when they go to college, when, you know. Yeah, I was about 4 years late to that, so I did it when I came to Australia. I just, you know, I was like, whatever. Like, I have nothing holding me back. I have no one holding me back. No ties to anywhere, anything, whatever. It's fine. So I still had that resentment and anger and disappointment and everything from my grandparents passing 5 years back that I never properly dealt with. And so it wasn't until probably 6 or 7 months into being in Australia when, like, so one of my roommates was Christian, and she offered for me to go to church with her, to Hillsong Church. And I was like, oh, I've heard of their music and stuff. I didn't even know it was a real like it was a church. I just knew they had music and stuff. But I was not in the mood when she invited me. I went out of obligation, but my heart wasn't in it, and I was like, I don't want to be here and all this stuff. So it just wasn't. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna come back. Like, I knew I had to go back, but I was like, I'm not here for the right reasons. I don't feel like being here. This is just gonna make me angrier, so I'm just not gonna do it until I'll know. Like, I'll be able to do it when I can do it, but I can't do it right now. So then it wasn't, I was going to a church, trying to go, but I wasn't getting connected in. It was like a really nice it was like a small close-knit church, and like they're all grown up together, been through years of life together, so it was like really hard, and I didn't feel, not that I didn't feel welcomed, but I didn't feel like anyone really could care, no one could care less whether I came or not on a Sunday, you know. And then on campus there was this Bible study, and it was the Hillsong Connect group that they had on campus, and me and my roommates were like, let's just go, let's just check it out, they have free pizza. And then it ended up being so good, and I met Vanessa, who is my roommate now, and Uthra, who is our other friend that also goes to Hillsong, and she's in India at the moment, but you have probably seen her as well. We've sang a few covers together, and so I met them that night, and I just felt really like safe, plugged in, kind of. I didn't feel judged, like they were looking at me funny. Like, my two roommates at the time, one is Muslim, and one is Hindu, I think. And you know, they didn't like bat an eye about when we explained anything. They're just like, oh yeah, cool. And there was no pressure or anything like that. I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. So I was like, okay, I'll come back. And then they invited me to church again. So I ended up going with them, and I definitely felt welcomed from the first day that I walked in. There was like, I never, even if I was standing, and I'm like really shy and awkward, as much as I've come out of my shell and stuff, I still am awkward and quiet in new situations a lot of the time. But they didn't let me feel for like more than 2 seconds like I was alone. Even if UT or Vanessa went somewhere else and they're the ones I came with, someone would be like, come here, or like, you know, have me join the conversation, or like not be out of the circle, and you know, all this stuff. So it just felt really good. And over attending for a few months, I was like, whenever I would say stuff that I did, I kind of was like testing to see, just waiting for those judgmental looks. They're like, you did that. And all this stuff, and never came. They're just like, yeah, it happens, like things like that. And then also the messages were pulling me back in, like all that stuff. I don't know, it's so hard to describe the slow progression, but it was, like I said, it was so hard for me to go back because I was like, oh, I don't know how to, or if I'll be accepted and all this stuff. And that's all I really needed to start going back. And like, you know, they were showing me Jesus' love that like I'd never really experienced before. Even though I did genuinely give my life over to him, I never genuinely experienced, like I had experienced his love from different people throughout my life, but I didn't really recognize it as that until I had done all this stuff. And then I had more of a need than ever before of Jesus and of forgiveness and of acceptance and all this stuff. So yeah, Hillsong is definitely, will always have a special place in my heart, even when I go home. And even though there's no Hillsong at home, it'll always definitely feel like home for me, because it's where I was able to find my identity in Christ and love myself because Jesus loved me first, and in turn love everyone else no matter what, because that's how he was, and that's how he loved, and that's how he wanted us to live and to portray him to the world. So I guess that's the major points in my testimony. Of course, there's lots of little things that would take a lifetime to explain, but I just really wanted to have on my channel my testimony, because it is a big part of me, and it is a big part of why I do everything that I do, just why I live my life the way I do. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and got something out of it. And if you have any questions for me, please feel free to leave them down in the comments, or just DM me on Instagram, because if you feel like it's too personal or anything, like I would love to hear from you guys. Want to know more about something in regards to me or church or just whatever, just let me know. And really glad I can finally share this with you guys. Like, I feel content with what I have shared with you guys. I feel at peace about what I've shared with you guys, and I hope that you can be blessed through what I've shared with you guys. And so yeah, that's it, and I hope to see you guys next time. And yeah, bye.